With brand new motorcycles costing ridiculous amounts these days, second-hand bikes are becoming more and more desirable. Chances are if you buy a second-hand bike, you won't only save money, but if you only keep it 3 or 4 years, you're most likely to be able to make back your money when you sell it. Other benefits include the fact that it will already be run in, and you might even get some free upgrades thrown in, like an aftermarket exhaust that you didn't have to sell a lung for. The goal is to find a bike that has low mileage, anything under 25,000 or 15,000 miles in my opinion, and that has been taken care of very well. There are loads of things to look at that can give you an idea of what the bike's life has been like. It's impossible to cover everything, but with more experience with motorcycles, the more you will pick up on. So this video's intentions is to try and give you a few good things to look at and do when buying a used bike, so that your chances of getting ripped off can be reduced. However, this video purely focuses on the condition of the bike and not the whole buying process. There are 3 main areas to focus on when buying a bike in my opinion: aesthetics, mechanics, and hidden costs. I always start with aesthetics, but it depends on what will swing your vote on whether you want the bike or not. If a bike looks bad, I don't even care if it runs, because I don't want it. Always take a mate with to view a bike, because the more eyes, the better. And don't take that friend that can only spot a bike at a car show. Take the friend that can spot a 2007 R1 from a 2006. He is going to be far more useful at spotting flaws than the other guy. The joy of having 2 people is that you will each notice different issues with the bike. A few areas to look at aesthetically on a bike are things such as scratched yokes from a keyring. This always looks terrible and is not the easiest thing to mend. Cracked fairings, aftermarket fairings, or fairings that have been repainted badly can indicate an accident or that the bike has been dropped. Keep in mind that aftermarket fairings are usually bad quality and that OEM fairings are very expensive. Feel the paint. If the paint is rough or the headlights are hazy, the bike could have been stored outdoors, which is never a good thing, but it can easily be remedied. The same cannot be said for torn seats, which look awful, and cracked light housings or rusted headers and exhaust. And lastly, it should be spotted right away, but always make sure that the bike is actually the year that was being advertised. Nothing frustrates me more than an original R6 being advertised as a 2006. So make sure you know the bike well before you go and look at it, such as what year's specific color schemes were sold and decals that are meant to be on the bike. Moving on to mechanics. So a benefit of starting with the aesthetics is that the way a bike looks on the outside shows how the bike will most likely look on the inside. If the bike has never been cleaned, dropped a lot, and doesn't seem to be loved, chances are the owner never warmed it up, never changes the oil, and has no mechanical sympathy, in which this probably isn't the best purchase. But even if the bike is clean, there are still dozens of ways to get a better idea of how the bike has been treated mechanically. You can ask the owner as many questions as you like, but they will probably tell you exactly what you want to hear. So taking it into your own hands is the best strategy. Keep in mind, most owners will be pretty upset if you start stripping fairings to compression test the engine. So we'll try other methods instead. When trying to see what the bike is like mechanically, the best way is to start it yourself from as cold as possible and to then ride it to get it up to operating temperature. A lot of sellers will warm up the bike before you get there. It's a great technique because it prevents all the imbeciles showing up and revving the hell out of your beauty. But the problem is that bikes can behave differently at different temperatures. This is where going over aesthetics first can give the bike time to cool down if it was warmed up. Starting the bike yourself gives you a better idea of what the bike is like rather than watching the seller do it themselves. Parts like the ignition coils can perform differently between cold and operating temperatures, meaning the idle can be different, so always have a look at how it idles cold. Next, take it for a ride. It doesn't need to be far or hard, just enough to get a feel for the clutch's condition, how the brakes are, and if there are as many gears as there are supposed to be. Otherwise, the gearbox might have a much bigger problem. And make sure the motor will rev out to the red line and respond as expected. With those checks completed, the bike is now warm. You can once again see if it idles correctly. The forks have also been working, which means that you can see if fork seals have been popped, because now the seller cannot wipe away fluid on the forks. The engine oil has also been flowing, which means you can get a better look to see if sumps have been leaking or if there are any oil leaks. And while you're down there, have a look at the sump plug, because if the sump plug has been safety wired, it could give you an indication of whether the bike was a track or race bike. Other indicators of track bikes can be lost or incorrect bolts, because fairings have been living in a box while the bike has been out on the track in race trim. And the last indicator of a track bike could possibly be that the gearing has been changed. And lastly, take a deeper look at the bike to see if there are any hidden costs lurking around. When buying a second-hand bike, we always set a budget and try to get as much as possible within that budget. So it can be a real disaster when you hit your budget with a great looking bike and then only discover that you have to spend another few $100s on replacing parts that you didn't plan on. Always have a look at the condition of the chain and sprockets. Hook teeth on the sprockets and a chain with lots of tight spots will need extra money to replace. So try and get that deduction off of the price of the bike if that is the one you want to take. The same goes for tires. Worn down treads, squared off tires, or just plain cheap tires that don't belong on that bike are never safe and are a great thing to replace on a new bike. But anyway, those are a few key points to look out for when buying a used bike. No doubt I've missed a few and haven't experienced a few more, so if there's anything else that you've experienced that could help future buyers, please add them down in the comments below. Let's turn this into a great place to get advice for future buyers. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget the pleasantries. Please hit that like button, and since you're out and about on the internet, why not watch another one of my videos? Who knows, you might even enjoy it.